50% inflation. We've seen high inflation in Iran before. Put this in context. What does it feel like right now in the country in terms of the economics? What does it feel like if you are the average Iranian?
Well, we're not there yet, obviously.
No.
I mean, the IMF is saying this could happen.
Yep.
But before, when we had the last round of US sanctions, when Ahmadinejad was president of Iran, we saw inflation hovering above 40%, I think, at that point. And this, if it does bear out, is going to be obviously worse than that. But right now in Tehran, sentiment isn't good. I think people are extremely worried about the future and what's going to happen. On a daily basis, I speak to people about how they're dealing with price rises. Very recently, they've had to deal with a massive escalation in the price of red meats. All food items, basics, FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods, all these things are heavily impacted, particularly goods that are imported into the country, because right now Iran has a very big foreign currency inflow problem because of the sanctions on its oil exports. And with the US not extending these waivers, that's only going to get worse. But we have to wait and see whether those exports are going to get to zero. The Iranian government says it's an impossibility, and it's doubtful that they will get there, but the pressure is going to bear heavily on the economy for sure.
Golnar, what is the distribution of income like, and how will what's forecast 6% contraction in GDP impact the various segments of the Iranian population?
Well, I think the middle classes are going to be hurt very, very badly. I think they're under a lot of pressure right now. Obviously, the poorer segments of society are always going to be hurt by this, and that's largely because of the massive depreciation in the rial, in the Iranian currency. It's lost, at one point it was losing more than 70% of its value. It's strengthened a little bit over the past few months, but again, with these exemptions on the oil imports for countries that had waivers, with these not being renewed, we don't know. It could go back again. The rial could start declining quite significantly, and that hits people directly in their pockets. It means that their take-home income is worth far less, and they can obviously buy less, and the price of goods also goes up significantly.
OK, so let's translate this into what this is likely to mean in terms of policy. Clearly, sanctions are having an effect. They are visible on the ground. How does that translate into the way that the government is going to deal with the sanctions that are being imposed? You say that it can never get to zero in terms of the oil exports, but that's Trump's desire. He's going to keep squeezing. What do people expect from the government in terms of the reaction here? I
mean, it's a very good question, and I think the picture in Tehran is very complicated. From what I see, the US approach so far, from speaking to people, particularly people in the middle class in Tehran, this is serving to kind of increase anti-US sentiment quite significantly, because I think people are exhausted of this cycle of being sanctioned and then having sanctions relief, of some kind of outreach with the West and then having to close back, back off again. And I think generally there's a huge sense of disappointment about what happened with the nuclear deal. But I think Iranians also feel that there are some fundamental structural issues with the economy that really need to be addressed by the system. And I think President Rouhani and the central bank are doing that. And, the Supreme Leader Khamenei has told them to deal with corruption, and the judiciary are really cracking down on it. But I think the people feel squeezed between these two elements, between US policy and, to an extent, the official approach to the economy. But this is no way bringing Iranians further towards Washington or the Trump line of thinking. If anything, from what I can see, it's doing the opposite.